Welcome to Quick Hits. I'm your host, Shannon Smith, aka Podcast Smitty, and I am a fan of sport. Last time that we talked about the WNBA. And now that we have met again, we're going to talk about the WNBA. We had two coaching changes that took place. Noelle Quinn out as the head coach of the Seattle Storm, and Sandy Brondello out as the head coach of the New York Liberty. We have to talk about those moves. Were they warranted? What led up to these moves being made? Round one is in the books. We have to talk about what went on in round one. There were some picks that I made. Some were right, some were wrong. And we have to discuss those moves here on this very podcast. We're going to go ahead and get into round two as well. We're going to make some quick hits, quick picks about who was going to win tonight's games as we have the doubleheader here with the Minnesota Lynx versus the Phoenix Mercury and the Indiana Fever versus the Las Vegas Aces. We're going to talk about that series, who may come out as the winner, make some picks, and we're going to go enjoy the games. So without further ado, let's start the show.
Can't fall off, now they holler he'll turn, thinking I'ma sell out, talking just to feel heard. I never listen, although they say it's strictly.
Now, I'll be honest with you, I was going to get a show to you on Tuesday, but I got the show to you late. Got the show to Michael Davis, that is. Got it to him late. In a roundabout way, he had to pull me on the carpet and he had to talk to me. He had to tell me about myself. But you know what? I realized what he was saying. So I said, I'm going to get a better show to you for Friday, and it'll be a lot better. It'll be taken care of. He said, hey, I like the idea. Let's go ahead and do that. And so here we are back again on our regular spot on Friday. So the first coach that ended up losing her job was Noelle Quinn from the Seattle Storm. Now, I was not really shocked about that one. I had a funny feeling she was going to lose her job. And, you don't wish anybody to lose their job, but when the performance is lackluster, a lot of times the coaches get a lot of the blame. They take the fall for it. But in this case, looking at what has happened with this Seattle Storm team, this squad was a well put together squad. I like the way this squad was put together. Ezzy the Meg Bagor, I liked her in the center. One of the best two-way forwards in Nneka Ogwumike, a great distributing point guard and scoring point guard in Skylar Diggins, a great defensive player in Gabby Williams, a great bench player in Erica Wheeler, and an emerging young star, Dominique Malunga, who many think is like the next Wemby, a.k.a. the Parisian Pillar. Shout out to my man, Jason Colenso, host of Three from Deep and Sideline Savants. That's the nickname he's giving him. He's trying to get that to work. So, hey, make that happen for Wemby. Make that happen for Dominique Malunga. But this squad underperformed. They were 14-9 actually going into the first half of the season before the All-Star break. They were fourth in the WNBA. They were looking like they were going to make a push for a championship. They made a great trade and a player that I'm really high on in Brittany Sykes. Bought her onto the team. It looked like they were going to contend, but that did not happen. They went from fourth place all the way down to eighth at one point. They slid into the playoffs as a seventh seed. It was a lackluster performance. And of course, they had the first round exit to the Las Vegas Aces. Even though they pushed the Aces to the limit in both games, they ended up leaving out, losing 2 out of 3. And here we are with Coach Noelle Quinn being relieved of her duties, not picking up the contract for the Seattle Storm. Very unfortunate, but I did see this move coming. Now, the coaching change that I didn't see coming was the New York Liberty getting rid of Sandy Brondello, a.k.a. Sandy B. I was not happy about this move. I thought this was crazy. I understand that the New York Liberty want to win yet again, win another championship. They won one last year. That's another reason why I was very surprised by this move, is because Sandy B got a championship last year. There's not even been dust on the ring yet, but they get rid of her after this year. Now, I understand watching this squad play this whole year. They were the number 2 team heading into the All-Star break. Sandy B coached one of the WNBA All-Star teams. She was doing great in the beginning of the year. Of course, injuries happened the first half of the season, losing Jonquel Jones for a significant amount of time. But the team was able to play around that injury. Later on in the second half of the season, they started losing a few more games. Breanna Stewart ended up being hurt for the better part of August. That was very tough for them. Sabrina Ionescu ended up getting hurt as well, too. That slowed down the New York Liberty's play. They ended up going from number 2 to number 5. Of course, the Las Vegas Aces started winning around that time, but the New York Liberty still made the playoffs. Unfortunately, they had that first round exit to the Phoenix Mercury, losing in 2 out of 3 games. And there was talks about Sandy B maybe losing their job, or the New York Liberty moving forward from Sandy B as a coach. Of course not. Why not? Breanna Stewart even said it in the interview. That was insane. They have her back. She has their back as a coach. That didn't happen. They ended up letting her go. I thought this move was absolutely ridiculous. Ridiculous. And the reason for that is because the New York Liberty were one of the original 8 teams in the WNBA. They're still running, still going. But one thing that has to be understood is that the New York Liberty, pre-Sandy B, went to 5 WNBA finals and lost. I believe the last one before they won this year's championship was in 2002, as they played the Los Angeles Sparks. If I'm wrong, put that in the comments. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that was the last one that they got to, was in 2002. But with all that being said, between 8 coaches, 8 of those coaches that have coached this franchise, Sandy B being coach number 9, she's the only coach of those 8 to win a championship. And also, too, the very first appearance in the championship game for her with the New York Liberty, they won. So that's why I'm a little worried. That's why I don't like this move. That's why I'm fervently against it. And let's dig a little further as well, too. New York has 2 NBA franchises, the New York Knicks and the Brooklyn Nets. Of course, the Brooklyn Nets came in 2012. They were the New Jersey Nets, but they're now the Brooklyn Nets since 2012. The New York Rangers in hockey, the New York Islanders, also too is a hockey team, the New York Mets, and the New York Yankees being the baseball teams, and the New York Liberty being their women's basketball team. Between those franchises, 106 coaches could not do what Sandy B did in 2024, and that's capture a championship. 106 coaches between 7 teams. Between 7 teams, Sandy B is the only coach from those 106 coaches to win a championship as of right now. And looking at it to the New York Knicks, I think their last championship was in 1973. The Brooklyn Nets have never won a championship either as the New Jersey Nets or the Brooklyn Nets. The New York Rangers, their last one was in 1993, the 93-94 season. The Islanders won in the 82-83 season. The Mets won in 1986. I do remember that. I despise the Mets. I'm a Braves fan, but they won the year that I was born, so I'll always remember that. One of the best plays in all of Major League Baseball, one of the best hits made in Major League Baseball was hit during that World Series run. The New York Yankees, I think they won theirs in 2009. And of course, the New York Liberty won their first one in 2024. If I got any of those wrong, go in the comments and let me know. If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. But this is why this move was absolutely foolish. Why? Why, New York? I don't know. This makes no sense to me whatsoever. The Seattle Storm, I get it. I understand what happened with Noelle Quinn. I understand that. The team was losing traction. There was some stuff going on outside of the team, talking about bullying allegations with coaches, the inconsistency in the playoffs. the team losing their handle this year, I get it. But with the New York Liberty, I don't understand this move at all. You're one coach that wins you a championship, and it wasn't even a year yet, and you let this coach go. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Now, I'm one of those people that when I'm right, I like to let you, your mama, and everybody know that I'm right. But when I'm wrong, although I hate to admit it, I'll come back and I'll say, hey, I was wrong. And I'll say it just as vibrantly as I would say if I was right. Now, the last time we were together, I made some picks for the first round all the way to the WNBA Finals. 2 of those I got right, and 2 of them I got wrong. And we're going to cover it right here in this segment called Right and Wrong. Let's go ahead and celebrate the victories, the ones that I got right. So let's talk about the very first matchup, which was the Minnesota Lynx beating the Golden State Valkyries 2-0 in the sweep. I predicted a sweep. That's exactly what they did. Now, when I looked at this matchup, I started thinking about the science fair. Now, bear with me on this one. I know you're probably thinking that it's a little weird that I say this, but here's what I'm saying. Now, go back, all my millennials out there, when we had the science fair in elementary school, starting in third grade on up to 5th grade. We had the science fair. Everybody in the class did a science project. So they do the science project. It was part of your grade, so you had to do it. So we do the science project. We put it in front of the class. We talk about it in front of the class, explain it, execute the science project. Everything's cool. Now, they take the best ones out of the grade, first, second, third prize. And those first, second, and third prizes, the first prize ends up going on and competing with the school-wide. And the school-wide goes on to face the other schools in the county. Then they go to like a regional, and then they go to the state to see who has the best science project in the state. Now, I'll go ahead and say this. I wasn't one of those people. I was one of the ones every year that got that green ribbon. You know what I'm talking about? That participant ribbon. That's saying, hey, thank you. Thank you for your participation. But you get nothing. Just this green little ribbon is all that you get. And as sports fans, I think that's what we were thinking of when the Golden State Valkyries came in. They were an expansion team. We didn't think that they were going to do as much as they did, but they showed up and they showed out. They were saying to everybody every year, what expansion team. They won more games in an inaugural season than any expansion team in the WNBA. They were the first expansion team in their inaugural season to go to the WNBA playoffs. I'm so glad the league got it right with Most Improved Player of the Year and gave it to Veronica Burton. I'm so glad they gave it to her. She deserved that. She was almost out of the league, had a resurgence with the Golden State Valkyries, played very, very good basketball. Kayla Thornton went to the All-Star game. Incredible job by her. Unfortunately, she had to have that knee surgery after the All-Star game. Get well soon to Kayla Thornton. And, of course, Natalie Nakase, Coach of the Year. Congratulations to her. Couldn't have happened to a better person. Great job. And they received another award. Might not be the best award, but that award was they got to the playoffs, but they had to play the #1 team in the Minnesota Lynx. And that's exactly what happened. They ended up going back to the house 2-0. Nothing to hang your heads about Golden State. Nothing to hang your heads about at all. Great job. And I was right about the Aces beating the Seattle Storm. I did say it was going to be a sweep. Like I said in the last segment when we were talking about coaching changes, I was not high on this Seattle Storm team. I didn't think that they would win a game against the Las Vegas Aces, who were just streaking. They were scorching hot. The Smoking Aces, they were handling biz. I didn't think that they would do that. But as a fan, if I were a fan of the Seattle Storm, I'd be absolutely frustrated. 5 years of this, not getting to the playoffs at one point, and then getting to the playoffs, not being able to get past the second round. With this squad that you had this year, this looked like a contending squad. They ended up sliding in here 7th in the WNBA, 7th seed in the playoffs. That to me is just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. That's what led to the coaching change, getting Noelle Quinn out of there with the Seattle Storm. This series told the stories of the frustration of the Seattle Storm, just getting there and not being able to finish it, not being able to go on to the next round. I think that if they would have beat the Aces, even though they were close with the Aces, I think if they would have beat them, Noelle Quinn would have probably not been fired. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. And that's got to hurt because the Seattle Storm have a rich legacy. They have great players. They won championships. In the 2010s, they were one of the best teams in the WNBA, like one of the best teams of the 2010s. That Sue Bird squad, that Lauren Jackson squad. Lauren Jackson winning the MVP 3 times. One of 3 players. Used to be 4 players, but now since Asia won her 4th MVP, she is one of 3 players to win the WNBA MVP. Of course, a young upstart, Breanna Stewart, played for the Seattle Storm, which leads me to the ones that I got wrong. And one of the ones I got wrong was the New York Liberty beating the Phoenix Mercury. I thought that the Liberty would advance. I wasn't really high on the Phoenix Mercury at this point in time. Of course, all the injuries, I talked about that last segment, not going to dwell on that on this segment. But I gave the Liberty the benefit of the doubt with all the injuries that they had. I wanted the rematch between the Lynx and the Liberty that was in that fantastic WNBA Finals series. Great series, best of 5. I thought they were going to see each other yet again. The thing about it is the New York Liberty, they won on the road in overtime, ended up going back to New York, losing at home, then losing to the Phoenix Mercury in close quarters back in Phoenix. That was rough seeing that. I said the New York Liberty would win 2-1. That was vice versa. The Phoenix Mercury won. Speaking of vice versa, shout out to Pastor Troy. I was wrong about the Atlanta Dream beating the Indiana Fever. I had the Atlanta Dream winning 2-1. I felt like they would drop a game to the Indiana Fever, but unfortunately, the Indiana Fever won 2 games. They won 2 out of 3. The Indiana Fever just will not quit. Even if I lose, I win was a person. That would be the Indiana Fever. If there's a will, there's a way. They find a way to do it. I felt like the big fight was going to be the Atlanta Dream versus the Las Vegas Aces. Alicia Gray versus Asia Wilson. Those 2 were teammates in college. They're very, very good friends. Both of them were MVP candidates. Of course, Asia winning it there. Alicia Gray, I thought she was going to see her friend. Unfortunately, that did not happen. I was looking for Carl Semesko having a big challenge against Becky Hammond, who has won championships in the WNBA. I think Carl Semesko will be one of those coaches that will rival other coaches out there. I think he's a very, very skilled coach. I was looking for that coaching matchup. We did not get that. We're going to get Stephanie White versus Becky Hammond, which is going to be a banger of a matchup, with this being on Friday with the games coming up tonight. Looking forward to these games, but Indiana won 2-1 against Atlanta. Some notes on these teams. Not going to talk about Seattle and New York. We talked about them in the last segment, but I'm real curious about the Golden State Valkyries. The reason being is because they have this formula that's going. This formula got them into the WNBA playoffs. What do? Did they dive into free agency? Do they look to trade or make moves in the offseason? What do? Because the league has something on them that they didn't have on them this year. Film. So with all that happening, what do? They have a lot to work on and a lot to work towards, because they did what no other expansion team has done, and that's make the playoffs in their inaugural year. So this squad is not just one of those step-over squads. They can actually play. What they add on or what they bring from this season is going to reflect on them in the next season. And with the Atlanta Dream, that's one of those things. What are they going to do? Brittany Griner is getting older. Does she come back next year? Does she decide to not stay with the team or stay with the team? What are we going to see? But I think they have a great core. Alicia Gray, of course, being an MVP candidate. Ryan Howard, who is a top pick a couple years back. Bree Jones, who is very wonderful in the post. Nas Hillman coming off of the bench. They've got a great squad. I think that Carl Smesco has pieces to work with. It is going to be interesting to see what the Atlanta Dream does with this happening here in the offseason, getting ready for next summer. Looking forward to all of that heading on into the next segment. Now let's hit these quick hits, quick picks. Got to talk about these games before I make my picks. Starting with Tuesday night's game, those two games. We've only got two games on for the season, and they were all on Tuesday night. Of course, the earlier game was the Phoenix Mercury and the Minnesota Lynx in Minnesota. Looked like the Minnesota Lynx were going to take game two and go up 2-0 with 2 wins at home, which would have gave them the momentum in a mighty way. But the Phoenix Mercury said, not so fast, my friend. They decided they were going to make this a game, and that was on the backs of Alyssa Thomas. 19 points, 13 assists, 8 rebounds, made some clutch free throws, and she's not that great of a free throw shooter. They put her on the line. She answered the call. Very good job by the MVP finalist, Alyssa Thomas. But honestly, Satu Sabali was the one that handled business in this game. 24 points, 9 rebounds. She was the clutch scorer around that third and fourth quarter. That second half, she owned that second half. A lot of points being scored by her. But honestly, Sammy Whitcomb, ice in her veins, game tying 3 after chopping that 20-point lead down to force overtime. After that, the Phoenix Mercury decided they were going to take this game away from the Minnesota Lynx. Got to give credit where credit is due. The Lynx, even though they had double-figure scoring from Alana Smith, Nafisa Collier, Kayla McBride, and Courtney Williams, it was not enough. The bench was not there for the Minnesota Lynx at all, outside of Jessica Shepard with only 3 points and 7 rebounds. That was it. Not a lot of scoring from the bench coming from the Minnesota Lynx, which is what hurt them in this game, as the Mercury taking the win in overtime with a hostile crowd in Minnesota. And then the Las Vegas Aces playing the Indiana Fever, the bounce back game for the Las Vegas Aces after being surprised in the first game. Kelsey Mitchell going off in the first game. She really didn't have that great of a game, only put up 13 points. One of the things I feel like in this game, like watching this game, the Vegas Aces said we're going to take the ball out of Kelsey Mitchell's hands and force someone else to score it. Odyssey Sims was one of those scorers. She put up 18. Lexi Hall put up 15. I think they were okay with the fact that someone besides Kelsey Mitchell was scoring with the basketball. So, and one thing also too, I noticed that even with Kelsey Mitchell not having a great game, you got to lay a Boston right there. And she only put up 10 points. She was having a hard fought battle with fellow South Carolina alum, our reigning MVP, and Asia Wilson. She had a hard fought battle with Asia, and I get it. That probably could have exhausted her with that on the defensive end, but on the offensive end, she had a double-double, 10 points, 13 rebounds. Alea Boston did, but she didn't get any touches on the offense. Wasn't involved in the offense a lot. So not a lot from the bench coming from the Indiana Fever. Kelsey Mitchell not having a big scoring game, which led to the Las Vegas Aces just doing what they do. Of course, Asia Wilson, 25 points, 9 rebounds. She's handling biz. Of course, the reigning 4-time MVP and this year's MVP as well, too. Though, this is one thing that I really liked about this game. Melissa Smith getting involved. 18 points, 7 rebounds in this game. Alyssa Smith, former Indiana Fever player, she played very, very well. Jackie Young with 13 points, but the bench is what did it for the Las Vegas Aces. Jewel Lloyd with 10 points, 4 rebounds in this game. 10 points for Dana Evans, who we haven't seen a lot of, but she can play. Dana Evans can ball. And I got to give credit where credit is due with the way Becky Hammon spread that ball around. She was able to get it to her bench players, able to get it to Alyssa Smith. Although there was scoring being done by Asia Wilson, Asia able to play her game dominantly on the boards and also on the defensive end. So what a game for the Las Vegas Aces as they tie up. 90-68 is the final on Tuesday. These games were nip and tuck. This is going to be a fun semifinal. Now, do my feelings change about these teams? I got this prediction wrong, of course, because I had the Atlanta Dream playing the Las Vegas Aces, and I had the New York Liberty playing the Minnesota Lynx. Do my thoughts change about these teams? Absolutely. I think Phoenix coming back home with the big win in overtime is going to be huge going back to Phoenix. And also, too, for the Aces, going to Indiana is going to be very, very tough for them because that home crowd in Indiana is raucous. They travel very, very well as well, too. The Aces have to keep their heads about them because Indiana has a crazy fan base. And I think that just getting that crowd involved is going to get Indiana to cook. It is going to be a fun game. But for Friday's games, I do expect for the Aces to win. They're going to steal a game in Indiana, I believe. I think that Indiana will come back. I think these are going 5 games. I think both these series are going 5 games. I think Indiana loses this first game when they go back home to the Las Vegas Aces on tonight. And I feel like the Minnesota Lynx, I think that they will get the first win in Phoenix. So I'm going to go for the Road Dogs on these Friday games. I'm going to be locked up watching these games right here. So give me Minnesota to beat Phoenix at home in Game 3 tonight, and give me the Las Vegas Aces to steal one in Indiana tonight. Stay tuned for these games here. This is going to be fun. I'm loving the playoffs right now. Give me more WNBA. Let me have 5 games. Let me have 5 games between these two. I'm begging you teams, go 5 games because this finals is going to be dope. It's going to be a 7-game series for the finals. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to these games being played. Let's go. And before I go, let me remind you to subscribe to the Boom Broadcasting YouTube channel and go through the plethora of podcasts that we have in the field of TV and movie, sports and sports entertainment, live podcasts, solo podcasts, team content. We got it right here on this here YouTube channel. See us on the socials, Facebook, X, TikTok, Instagram. See us on there. We're going to be putting some reels up, some more fun stuff. Watch these great shows from my constituents. But before I get out of here, had to plug in Boom Broadcasting. I also forgot some things talking about Sandy B. I know there was some of y'all out there that was like, you forgot football. Podcast Smitty, you forgot football. And you're absolutely correct. I sure did forget football. But this adds to my point even more. If you're talking about the New York Football Giants, their last championship, 2011, I believe it was 2011 was their last championship. 5 coaches after 2011 could not do what Sandy B has done. And then also the New York Jets, they haven't won the Super Bowl since, I believe, 1968, Super Bowl III. Joe Namath, that was the last Super Bowl that they won. 19 head coaches could not get done what Sandy B did, which brings the total to 130. 130 coaches over the span of time that could not win one championship as opposed to the 4 seasons that Sandy B was with the New York Liberty and bringing the championship to them in 2024. That's all the numbers. I'm done with the numbers for tonight. Watch these games in WNBA in full effect. Watch these games tonight. I'm going to be glued to them. I'm looking forward to them. This whole weekend is going to be a fun sports weekend, so make sure that you are watching, and make sure that you are watching Boom Broadcasting, because on Sunday, definitely my man Aaron Schneider going to be back in the building, going to do the Gridiron Address. He's going to be handling biz on that live, talking football in between the Sunday night games. Gets on there about a quarter to 8. Watch my man talk some football. Might see a cameo from your boy Podcast Smitty, you just might. But you will see Chris DeLuca, who is the host of the Dugout Debrief, talking your baseball. Y'all look at your calendars. We have playoff baseball on the horizon. Looking forward to that. My man Jason Colenso, Sideline Savants. I was on there this past Wednesday. Had fun talking fantasy football with my man JCNY. Make sure you're watching him. Watch It Stinks on Thursday with my man Sean Lucas, talking your TV and your movies. Make sure you're watching him. And of course, make sure you're watching Podcast Smitty on Fridays with your quick hits. Everybody, thank you for watching. Thank you for keeping it locked here on Boom Broadcast. And make sure you bring us back those 18 subscribers so we can get to 600 subs. We're going to keep on rocking with it. We're going to keep having fun here doing these podcasts. I'll see you next week. Thank you for your time. I'm Shannon Smith, and this is Quick Hits.
Can't fall off, now they holler he'll turn, thinking I'ma sell out, talking just to feel heard. I never listen, although they say it's strictly